The psychological abuse that I went through for 20 years is actually very common. It's just not recognized by most people in society. While I was manipulated to reject my dad, my friend Andrew was manipulated to reject his mom. Andrew Folkler is another adult who, as a child, endured the same psychological abuse that I went through. He shares his perspective on Substack in a newsletter he titled Shortening the Red Thread. And today I'm going to highlight his most recent article post entitled How to Talk with Your Alienated Child When They Don't Want to Talk to You. Hi, my name is Maddie and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to raise awareness and get this form of abuse on the public's consciousness. I'm so excited to share this resource that might help a lot of parents and children out there. First, I want to explain something. So the red thread is an ancient idea that those who are destined to meet are connected by an invisible string, no matter the distance, no matter the time. And Andrew's writing doesn't just honor that thread, he attempts to shorten it. Reading his work reminded me that our parents aren't the only one who hold the scissors. We can reach for that thread too. In this article, he starts by talking about the disconnect in communication with alienated kids. For many parents, Andrew writes, one of the biggest hurdles in alienation is getting their kids to communicate with them. He says that in severe cases of alienation, the child refuses to engage in conversation, and the alienated parent is left exasperated. Some parents try to flex their authority, only to discover that the child doesn't care. In their minds, they have already removed you from the role of mother or father. As time goes on, the conversations get shorter and less frequent. Your kids might ignore your messages, and if you're lucky, respond to them after a week. Some kids block your phone number and social media profiles, erasing you completely. The abusive parent enforces the physical and emotional distance through the alienation. Your child parrots the insults and accusations that their abusive parent has likely said to them first. In cases where the alienated child can spend time with you, they might provoke you into an argument. Some kids are told heinous things about you, and when they visit, they demand answers as if they were your judge, jury, and executioner. Teenagers who are victims of violence might also mimic their abuser, projecting their pain onto you through aggressive and violent behavior. Fights and arguments become a recurring theme when your alienated child communicates with you. In extreme situations, police or even CPS can get involved, turning a molehill into a mountain. These frequent conflicts are intentional. They are intended to wear you down until you give up communication altogether, while simultaneously reinforcing the negative accusations made against you. This is a great point Andrew makes here, because when you react to hostility and anger with hostility and anger, what you're doing is reinforcing that you are that bad person, that bad parent they've been manipulated to believe you are. So the best way to respond is to be cool, calm, and collected, very passive, however you can manage to do. If you have to walk away, you have to walk away. But the worst thing to do is to respond to hatred with hatred. It will reinforce to them that you are that bad guy they've been made to believe that you are. What I find interesting about this article is the next part. Andrew says, let's start with a few hostage negotiation techniques from the FBI. So he brings in some other work and other resources from books he's read and studies he's read, including techniques from the FBI. Alienation, Andrew says, is like a hostage negotiation where the hostage has developed extreme Stockholm syndrome. Your child is simultaneously the prisoner and the prison guard. As a result, they showcase the trauma of being manipulated while also defending their abuser. When hostages are trapped in a building with armed terrorists, the FBI follows specific protocols to ensure the safety of the hostages. They do not antagonize the terrorists, nor do they assume that they will play fair. Hostage negotiations are highly volatile. The terrorist is like a cornered rat, terrified that the authorities will hurt them. All it takes is a split second of overwhelming emotion for them to commit heinous acts against the hostages. The child is like the hostage in the hostage situation, and the parent who is doing the abuse, the alienation, is like the terrorist, that cornered rat, who all it takes is a split second of overwhelming emotion for them to commit a heinous act. And then he goes on to quote Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator, who shares many stories of hostage negotiations in his book, quote, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Andrew says that the moment a hostage negotiator begins communication with the terrorist, the clock begins. The hostage negotiator must build rapport with someone highly volatile with every reason to distrust them. And they have to do it fast so that they can rescue the hostages. Building rapport requires learning as much as possible about the other person. This conversation is not like a date. There is no bonding over dinner and asking, so, what's your favorite movie? Any question that they ask the terrorist could lead them to feel afraid, which could result in communication being shut down, or worse, harm to the hostages. So I think in this metaphor, the hostage negotiator is the targeted parent trying to negotiate with the hostage, which is the alienated child, and the terrorist, the alienating parent. Any question they ask the terrorist could lead them to feel afraid, which could result in communication being shut down or worse, harm to the hostages. Additionally, they don't want to share any information with the terrorists that would give them an edge. Here's the part we don't want to acknowledge. Despite all of this, terrorists are still human. They may have terrible behaviors, but the universal elements of being human still apply. They want to be understood at an emotional level, and that angle is how you reach your alienated child. Let me repeat that because it seems to be very important. The alienator, in other words, wants to be understood at an emotional level, and that angle is how you reach your alienated child. In his book, Andrew writes, Chris Voss shares two fundamental techniques for building rapport. 1, labels, and 2, mirrors. What are labels and mirrors? Well, let's keep reading to find out. Labels and mirrors will be the bread and butter of your communication with your alienated child. Andrew continues this wonderful article by beginning with labels. A label is an inference that you make based on what someone else is telling you. For example, if someone is excited as they tell you about attending a Taylor Swift concert, you could label it as, it sounds like you really like Taylor Swift's music. A label is when you use empathy to make a statement about someone while subtly inviting them to confirm whether or not it's true. Rather than asking a direct question like, do you like Taylor Swift? You are casually making a statement. It doesn't feel like you're asking for answers, and it organically stimulates conversation. Furthermore, labels help you hide your questions with empathy. Too many questions in a row, and the conversation feels like a job interview or an interrogation. So, how do you ask a bunch of questions without asking any questions? You use a label. Here is how you can quickly come up with a label. Labels always start like this. It seems like. It sounds like. It looks like. It feels like. When you construct a label, you are using empathy to make an educated guess about what the other person is feeling. If the other person says, yeah, that's right, or yes, and you're golden. If they totally disagree with you, then that's also a win because it gives you more clarity around their thoughts. One of the biggest disadvantages of alienation, Andrew writes, is that the targeted parents lack context and information about their child. However, when they ask the child questions, they are left with insults instead of insights. By switching from asking questions to labeling the child's thoughts and feelings, the parent has a greater chance of extracting what the child is really thinking. Let's move into the second tactic called mirrors. Andrew writes that mirrors are a repetition of 1 to 3 words from what someone has said. For example, if someone were to say, my favorite guitar player is David Gilmour, you could respond with a mirror like, David Gilmour? Simple as that. Using the words that someone else has spoken as a question does the following things. 1, it invites them to elaborate on what they're talking about. 2, it shows the person that you are trying to understand them by using their own language. And 3, it's an act of respect and understanding, making them feel heard and valued. Additionally, in negotiations or challenging situations and discussions, mirroring can open up new avenues for understanding and ultimately lead to more creative solutions. Andrew goes on to include a quote directly from Chris Voss, whose book, Never Split the Difference, explains how to use labels and mirrors. Quote, "Mirrors work magic. Repeat the last 3 words, or the critical 1 to 3 words, of what someone has just said. We fear what's different and we are drawn to what's similar. Mirroring is the art of insinuating similarity, which facilitates bonding. Use mirrors to encourage the other side to empathize and bond with you. Keep people talking, buy your side time to regroup, and encourage your counterparts to reveal their strategy." I find this very interesting, and he includes a YouTube video that I'm not going to play, but you can go to this direct article and watch it. It's called We Broke Them Down and Built Them Back Up. 2 skills that will change your life. But I'm just going to continue the article. Andrew states, "The most common thing I see is an alienated child will say something hurtful and insulting, and the targeted parent immediately gets defensive. The child might say something like, 'I hate you, I don't love you, you're not my mom or dad, you're a sperm or egg donor, you're crazy, unwell, unstable, you're a drug addict, alcoholic, useless person, you're a liar, a cheater, a hypocrite, you're the reason for the divorce,' or you did insert horrible accusation here, and it's all your fault." As Andrew explains, targeted parents hear this and get emotionally riled up. Of course, who wouldn't? They don't want their child to view them in that light, and they start to fixate on things that can persuade the child that these things are false, or at least more nuanced than the child believes. However, this never works. You're trying to bring logic to an emotional conversation, and anyone who says that facts don't care about your feelings is missing the most important piece of the conversation. Your alienated child will not care if you claim the logical high ground. To them, you're as trustworthy as a conspiracy theorist. I'm only laughing because it's absolutely true, and hearing it come from his point of view is really important because he gets it. They believe you have dastardly ulterior motives. Feelings matter in alienation, as Andrew puts it, and they are unavoidable. Unfortunately, your child is not in a place to listen to your feelings, and you must be in the right headspace to guide them through theirs. That is why you need to use labels and mirrors in your conversation. Instead of giving power to insults and accusations, you channel your curiosity. Explore how much your child understands and invite them to articulate what they are upset about. In doing so, you gain clarity around their feelings and you show them that you understand them. You don't rush to speak after they say something. Instead, you sit with them in their emotions and try to understand their intentions and feelings through tactical empathy. Once they feel validated, they will be more willing to open up to you. I absolutely agree with that. This might not happen immediately, but the effect will compound over time. He also makes an important point when he says that alienated children cannot reunite when they are trapped in the jaws of the abusive parent. They have to wait for when it's safe. Oftentimes this happens when the child leaves home for college at 18, for instance. That's what Andrew just says next. He says often that means waiting until they're independent. If your child has positive memories of you being understanding and empathetic, they will remember that, and they will be more likely to reunite with you when they're ready. He also offers an example of using labels and mirrors in the case of alienation. He says, let's say that your child is accusing you of being the reason why they're miserable, and they say it's all your fault. Your child is struggling in school, which leads them to get in trouble for having bad grades. As a punishment from the alienator, they're constantly being yelled at, and they cannot go to their sports practices until their grades are up. The wrong things to do are apologizing for things that you did not do, dismissing their feelings with logic, like saying, I am so sorry you feel that way, but it's not true. Or getting emotional and retaliating, like saying, why are you blaming me? You made these choices. Your alienating parent is the reason you're unhappy, not me. Why do these responses not work? Well, as Andrew puts it, these responses only deepen the child's anguish. You must remain in an executive state. Otherwise, you risk escalating the conversation into an argument. So returning to the example, Andrew gives some responses that include labels and mirrors. The child's voice will be angry, but the parent's voice is supposed to be low, calm, and slow. When the child says, for example, "I hate you, everything is your fault, and I don't want to talk to you," the parent can say, "You feel it is my fault?" The child might say, "Yes, because you cheated on dad. You don't care about this family." The parent might be able to say something like, "It sounds like you're under a lot of stress." The child might go on to say something like, "Of course I'm stressed. Because of you, I can't focus on school, and I'm failing my classes." The parent might use a mirror technique to say, "Failing your classes?" The child might go on to say, "Yeah, every time I go to school, my brain shuts down." And the parent could say something like this as a label: "It sounds like your mind is focused on other, more important things." The child might respond with, "Dad said if I don't start getting A's in math, I can't go to soccer practice." And the parent could respond with another label: "It sounds like you're worried about letting the team down." In this example, no attention is given to the insults or accusations. If your child is fixated on something, then you can respond with a label or a mirror about that thing to help them process their emotions about it. Speak slowly and calmly, channeling curiosity, even if the insult hurts. And I'll add, even if you want to retaliate, even if you want to respond to anger with anger, focus on everything you can do to speak slowly, calmly, steadily. Again, Andrew points out that the point is to draw out the child's thoughts, feelings, and intentions. This gives you clarity about what they're thinking and gives you more options to solve the issue. He also encourages parents to practice using labels and mirrors every day until it's second nature. He says labels and mirrors are invaluable in communicating with your alienated child, and the best part is that you can apply them to any conversation. Start by practicing at work, at home, practice with your friends. He also encourages parents to actually read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if Your Life Depended on It. He includes another TED Talk, which is by Chris Voss. You can go to his Substack directly to watch these videos, and another video about ultimatums. So I wanted to share Andrew's Substack today because it's such an important resource. He posts on it about once a month, and I thought this article was especially pertinent to share for parents, but he has some other ones like Escaping the Prison of Mind, the most powerful book that helped me heal from alienation, How to Talk to Your Alienated Child When They Don't Want to Talk to You, the one we just read, Seeing Through the Eyes of an Alienated Child, Find Meaning in Alienation When All Hope is Lost, a bunch of different topics. I'll include the link to his Substack in the description box below. I just want to say thank you so much, Andrew, for putting together this resource for families who are affected by this psychological abuse. It's really important. Please go support him, subscribe to his Substack, and share the article if you found it helpful. If you'd like for me to cover other works and resources that have been put out there by other former alienated children, please let me know in the comments below if that would be something that would be helpful or insightful for everybody to know. So that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please give it a thumbs up to get parental alienation in the algorithm and inform the world about this terrible, horrific form of psychological abuse. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so you don't miss any new videos. Subscribe to my newsletter and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.